Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Victoria and I inconsistently post YouTube videos. And one of the last couple videos I did a long time ago was about a story time of a true crime that happened not at my high school, but involving a coach at my high school when I was a freshman. So I have some notes. There's a lot of weird details to this as to whether the coach that taught at my high school did this crime or not to his pregnant wife. So that should just give you some details on to how sad this case really is and that it's still not solved. So I'll just get right into it. So his name is David Temple. Let me know if you've heard of it. I feel like it's very not popular. What's the word? A high press coverage. I'm lacking the words. In Houston, but I don't know about anywhere else. So here's my yearbook, and I found little Mr. David. Oh, can you see him? He's right there. And you can Google his name, and you can see he has definitely aged over the last 22 years. So David Temple, I'll just give like a little synopsis. Let's bring us up to speed to the date of the crime. So David Temple was born and raised in Katy, Texas, which is a suburb outside of Houston. And back in his day, it was like a small town. Like it was pretty, definitely small town. Houston has just grown since then. It's crazy. So born and raised in Katy, Texas, big time football star. He goes to Stephen F. Austin University in Nacogdoches, where also football star. And he meets Belinda, and they fall in love, and they get married, I believe, around 1992. They finish up their education, and they move back to Katy, Texas, so where he's from. And I guess he was, like, very popular. I mean, I don't know, but he was Mr. Football Star, like a big fish in a small pond, you know? So, and in the trial, they go into that a little bit, but I'm not going to. It's neither here nor there. Let's see if he did this or not, because it's just weird. Okay, so they move back to Katy, Texas. They are both teaching. She, I believe, is a special education teacher at a high school in Katy. Don't quote me, but it's at a high school in Katy. And he is the football coach for my high school, my I don't know. A-Leaf Hastings High School. As you can see, the kind of education they produce. And he's also like kind of a health teacher, which is how I know more of who he is he was my little 9-week health teacher. And I honestly don't have a ton of memories, but one memory that we'll get to. So to bring us up to date, okay. So they're both having their little teaching jobs. Belinda finds out that she's pregnant, and they welcome their first child, their son Evan, in 1995. A few years later, she finds out she's pregnant again, and this time with a little girl that they are going to name Erin. And at the time of this crime, Belinda is like super 8 months pregnant, like almost 9 months pregnant. So she's full term. And I'm trying to like decide like what order should I'll give you the facts. Okay, so that's what's going on. I think her due date was like in February. So on January 11th, 1999, Belinda gets a phone call that their son Evan, who's 3 at the time, had a fever at daycare and that he needs to be picked up. So Belinda is able to leave work early to pick him up, but she has a meeting later on. So she tells David, Evan's at home with a fever, but I have a meeting, so can you take over, dad duties whenever you get home? So David gets home, they exchange, whatever. David is seen with Evan during this time period. Now, I do believe Belinda went to her meeting, but I'm not 100% sure. And that doesn't really play into this. Like, they don't bring that up at all. So, David Temple says he and his son ran some errands, and went to a park during this time. And when they come back home, he sees that their back door is open and glass is broken. Clearly, things don't look right. So he runs across the street, gives his neighbor their son and says, call 911. Someone's in my house. And this is before the day of like when cell phones were very, like, they weren't popular, really. I mean, so to me, that's not weird that he ran across the street and wanted to get his son away. So, there's that. So once he gets his son secured over there and they're calling 911, he goes inside and he's like looking around frantically. He sees her purse, Belinda's purse and keys, and I believe on the stairs, and he ends up finding her shot to death in their master closet with, I believe, a 12 gauge shotgun. And he calls 911. You can look up the 911 call, and that's like, I mean, it's a 911 call, and he's not calm, but it's just like, the call was not anything that would make him guilty or not guilty, I should say. That's what I'm trying to say. Well, if I can talk. Okay, so the police get there, and they're checking out the crime scene, and one of the detectives, I do remember reading this, because there's a book written about this. It's a really good book. One of the detectives said he felt like something was off at the crime scene from the beginning, and he couldn't put his finger on it. He couldn't tell what. Something just felt really off. And later on, we'll come to find out what felt off to the detective. So, they're doing their thing, trying to gather all the evidence, fingerprints, DNA, Dunna, if you have kids. I've watched Zootopia a million times. Dunna, and see if there's any eyewitnesses, if anyone heard anything, saw anything, strange cars, like all the business. And no one has any information to offer up. So not generally, when a spouse dies, they always talk to the other spouse. Like, they're suspicious of the spouse first. That's like first person of interest. So they talk to him, and he apparently has this airtight alibi. He says he and his son Evan went to Berkshire Brothers, Home Depot, and then a park. And they find him on surveillance video at Berkshire Brothers and at Home Depot. And he says he goes to Park A. So, they're getting down to the nitty gritty. They're like driving from place to place to see if this makes sense for the timeline, because it's like a 2-hour window. And they're really like honing in on his alibi. And they interview him. They ask him to tell his alibi again. And he gives them the same story, except this time, instead of saying Park A, he says Park B. And I have a hard time with that, because it's like, I don't know what it's like. Something crazy like that has just happened, so maybe you can't think clearly. And we have several parks around us, and we go to them all the time. So I don't know how I feel about that. Other than the fact I think he's guilty, and I think he's a real jerk, but that's just me being judgmental. So his alibi is and then when they start looking at the crime scene further, it's not jiving. First thing, they have a very aggressive dog. The dog's name is Shasta, and the police could not even get near the backyard without the dog almost breaking down the wooden fence, and he had to put the dog in the garage. Suspicious. How is a burglar going to break into your house with this very aggressive large dog? Even if you gave it a snack, dogs can gobble things down, and if they're mad, you come in their territory, they're big mad. So that was very off. The way the glass was broken, off. And then when they start looking around the house, they realize nothing was taken. All the electronics were moved. The TV was moved, and the VCR or whatever it was moved. Her purse was still there. Her keys were still there. Her jewelry, all of her nice jewelry was still there. The drawers were open, but nothing had been taken. So that is, it just doesn't make sense. And then you have this horrible, gruesome crime of an 8-month-old mother. I can't remember if I said she was found in their master closet in their bedroom. See, I've like recorded so many times I can't remember. So anyway, he found her shot to death in their master closet. So one thing is with the evidence, like on David Temple, they could not find anything. Like, no, there wasn't glass fragments, blood, all the stuff. I don't know if they bagged his hands. That's one thing. They might not have. See, I have my laptop here. I could look it up. But that's what happened last time. I just started getting into that, and then I couldn't remember what I was talking about. I bet they must not have, okay, because that's not brought up. But they are definitely not finished talking to him about the situation. And they also talked to Belinda's friends and family. She has a twin sister, and they are saying a different story, that their marriage was very tumultuous, that David was not happy. She's pregnant with a second child, much less that it was a girl, that they were not getting along. He'd been spending a lot of time away from home, and Belinda had felt very lonely. And that's just not the story David was telling. So, sorry. We're all getting over COVID, so I've had a lot of time to take my notes. So they start talking to David about this, and once they dig deeper, it is surfaced that David Temple is actually having an affair with one of the English teachers at the high school named Heather Scott. Now, I have a treat for y'all because she's in the yearbook too. Look at this little thing. Okay, there's a little bit. Oh gosh, this is really hard to do. Okay, here we go. The blonde, that's little Miss Heather Scott right there. Okay, so at first they play down their affair. Like, they're just friends, just a little flirty, a little flirtationship. But as they dig deeper, and by dig deeper, I mean the FBI coming and confiscating his computer from his classroom, which is what I got to see. Yeah, that was crazy. The FBI literally came in and was like, took his computer, and they are able to go back and trace their emails, all the communication they'd had, and it turns out it was a little bit more than just a little flirty thing. It was a full-blown love affair. In fact, that New Year's, David said he was going hunting with friends, and he did not do that. He was having a romantic New Year's with his little gal, Heather Scott. So there was definitely a motive. They felt like there was some motive. And Belinda not being around anymore for David. And right before this crime, Heather Scott had sent him a message saying, like, I don't feel right doing this. You know, you're married, and, you know, we're just going to have to not see each other. And then after, I mean, it's like, it's like teenagers. And then they decide, no, they profess their love for each other. And David's like, I have to be with you, like, no matter what. I will make it happen. They're so in love. So that's happening. So once he's confronted with this, sorry, I got my legs falling asleep. He does admit to the full affair, but he's like, that doesn't mean I killed my wife. Like, I would never, you know, I guess. So the crime scene was investigated, and they just, y'all, sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable again. They just could not find concrete evidence. And with David, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence because yeah, he was seen for like a few minutes on those surveillance cameras, but people had questions. Like, if your son had a fever, why are you taking him out to the store and to the park and stuff? If he's sick, wouldn't he be at home, like, sleeping? Which apparently he was. I don't know. So that is kind of where it's left off. Like, he is still, y'all, he was at my high school till like what, 2001, 2002? I'm not even sure if he got fired or let go or what happened. But I was asking my parents, I was like, do you remember this happening? And being like, why is he still teaching at the school? Why have they not arrested him? And my parents said, yeah, they did remember. And now I'm like, I want to ask them, like, why didn't you say anything? I will ask them. They'll probably be like, I don't know, I don't remember. You weren't in sports, you didn't care. Which is true. I was not a scholastic person. So it's really hard because they just can't find any evidence on him that would point him to the crime. And, you know, his love affair, falling in love with Heather Scott, technically didn't make him guilty of the crime. So he finally got arrested in, what was it, November of 2004. Yes, it was November of 2004. And I never really looked into why it took that long, almost 5 years, or 5 years. And what they did, this blows my mind, truly, is they sent her clothes off to forensics and the clothes he was wearing that day off to forensics. And it took 5 years, I guess, for them to discover the same gunpowder residue was found on both sets of clothing, meaning he had to have been in the room when the gun was shot. And we're going to get to some other things that lead to suspicions. But that takes 5 years. Like, I mean, I guess, look, I don't know how to do that stuff. So who am I to talk? I couldn't ever figure it out. But that's just a really long time on what is like a time sensitive thing. And the thing that's heartbreaking, and I'm going to add this in here just because it's so sad, and is that Belinda, you know, she was 8 months pregnant. She was ready to have her little girl. And when she was shot, she was killed immediately. But that the baby possibly could have survived, because when they did the autopsy, it showed that the baby lived for a while, like as long as, I mean, not for like hours, but like, you know, 15, 20 minutes, I believe. And if help had gotten to her sooner, you know, maybe the baby would have stood a chance. I don't know. It's just terrible. Oh, it's terrible. Okay, so I just had to share that because it's just like, oh, it is horrific. So they also end up finding that his little hunting weekend, he bought some ammunition for, and it's the same kind of ammunition that was used she was shot with. But for some, I guess they can't like directly match the bullets up. I'm not sure. This type of thing, I've like read it a million times, but it did not stick in my brain. And however, whatever they found was not concrete enough for them to be able to completely pull the trigger until they got this gunpowder residue on the clothing thing back. Well, let me get to my notes here. So he goes to trial, and all of this evidence is laid out. I'm trying to see where, because then I found out something very interesting about the gunpowder residue. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. So in this trial, all these facts are presented. Now, there's a whole nother story to this involving a neighbor. And that's probably why the arrest took a little bit longer as well than the 5-year residue situation. Which I won't even get into. That would be like a whole nother video. Because it's crazy. The trial just gets even messier. So they produced all their exhibits A through Z. And you know what? His defense tried to say that the place where they did the forensics for the clothing, it was in the same place as a gun range, like where you go shooting, and that due to the ventilation, that's why the clothing had the matching gunpowder on it, is because from the shooting range, the gunpowder was going through the vents and it got onto both sets of clothing. I don't know about that, because wouldn't the clothing be sealed, and like wouldn't you be doing it like you're not gonna hang the clothing up and steam it and make it look all nice to do your investigation on it? Like, no, you're not gonna do that. So clearly the jury did not feel that was a very good reason, because he's found guilty and he is sentenced to life in prison. But he is big mad because he still says he didn't do it. He did not do it. He doesn't know who did it, but he didn't do it. And he is granted a new trial eventually in 2016. Oh, I cannot believe I left this part out. He marries Heather Scott in 2001, less than 2 years after Belinda is killed. Not judging. I am judging, actually. I'm only judging him. I just really, he gave off major jerk vibes. Like, I'll never forget, like, in high school, now I was also like a very emo, dark and twisty teenager. But I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out there. So they did get married, and you know what? She raised his son while he was in prison. Interesting. So he's eventually granted a new trial in 2016. I was shooketh when this happened. He was free for 2.5 years out of prison. 2.5 years. I could not believe he was walking the streets, because in my mind, I never looked into the trial, but I followed it because clearly I was like, what? And I just felt like he just did it. I don't know. I just was like, scumbag, you did it. So the fact that he was out, just, you know, maybe he killed her, maybe he didn't, is crazy. So he gets a second trial, and he is found guilty a second time. And this is what took me off guard, or maybe it was a learning lesson for me. So he's found guilty, but when they go to sentencing, they cannot agree on a sentence. So it is found as a mistrial. What? But this time he doesn't get out, so I'm like, haha. So he's still in jail, and his trial was supposed to start again in March of 2020, which was when the pandemic happened or began, and they still have not gone back to trial. But y'all, and Heather Scott she abruptly, wow, that's really hard to say, abruptly divorced him, I think in like 2018 maybe. Oh my gosh, I should look it up. I do have that here somewhere. I mean, but they were married for a hot minute. Let's see. So she raised his son. Oh, this is when his second trial began, in July of, was it 2016? No, it was in July of 2019, she unexpectedly filed for divorce. What's that about, girl? Wanna know what happened? So, oh yeah, police never found the murder weapon. I'm telling you, there's so much to this. I don't, like, hurts my head. Those are, I hate to even say, that's like a cliff notes of one side that happened. Yeah, it's like, it is just, it really is crazy. They never found the weapon. They found the shotgun shell, and it matched, the type of shotgun shell either he or the neighbor had. Either way, it was something he had access to. But what do y'all think? Did he do it? Am I missing any information here? A lot of people have theories like that he to her and then left with the son because they can never determine an exact time of death. Like all these theories. And I don't know. And he's still waiting for his next trial. He is really, really fighting for his innocence. And I try to be open-minded, but it's just so hard when, I guess I find it hard to believe a criminal who's doing like a home invasion during the day of a quiet suburb, and especially back then, this was like a very supposed to be safe area, and they didn't leave one shred of DNA evidence or anything. They like, that's just what I guess is like, well, yeah, if you live there and if you did it and if you had the time to take care of some stuff, and like just with the affair, he wasn't very upfront about that. He could have just like, you know, be like, yeah, we had some issues, you know, I'm having an affair with my coworker, but I did not do this. Like, hey, I'm a terrible husband, but I'm not a killer, you know? I don't know. But he didn't. They had to like dig for that. Like, it was not, he did not just confess. They were like, so tell us about Heather. And he was like, oh, Heather? Oh yeah, she's a sweet gal. We talk by the coffee machine sometimes. Oh yeah, we've had some of our teacher after hours. We've chatted a little bit. And then it was like, oh, can we see some of these emails? And it's like, hey, Snuggle Bunny lover, you look gorgeous today in your pink dress. Like, did he not think they were going to see that? Like, they had a bunch of people testify about his character and just how he would talk about his wife. And I don't know. What do y'all think? Did he do it? I feel like he did. And I hate that I cannot pinpoint an actual, like, hard physical evidence reason why he did. Because the clothing situation with the ventilation, okay, I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but maybe it could. And then everything else, it's just like, what in the world? So what do y'all think? Oh, I should look up that book in case you're interested. I think it's an audiobook too. And this goes into a lot of detail. I will say it's probably more biased on the fact that he's guilty. Here it is. Y'all, it was a really good book. It's called Shattered. The True Story of a Mother's Love, a Husband's Betrayal, and a Cold-Blooded Texas Murder by Catherine Casey. And if y'all have never read anything by Catherine Casey, she does really, really good true crime books. Like, I think I've read almost all of her books. So yeah, it's still crazy to me that he worked at my school along with little Miss Heather. So I don't know, we'll see. I wonder when his, I think I actually saw his name in the news today about his third trial and when it might be starting. So I don't know. I really think he did it. And I feel like the jury possibly struggled with kind of the same doubts I have. Because I don't know. I feel for them. Because it's like beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, if there's any doubt, I don't know. It's hard. So I really would like to know what anyone thinks. I don't know if anyone will watch this, but if you do, I really want to know, did he do it? And I don't think we'll ever know, because if he did do it, I don't think he'll ever admit to it, because he's got, I think, an ego on him. I mean, hello, you're not like a football star, famous. And in Texas, that's like royalty, honey. Like, people be thinking they are like the it girl forever. Yeah, and if he didn't do it, who did? They have speculations. There's a neighbor that they think maybe did it, a teenager. But even then, none of that really matched up. And there was no evidence. Zero. And I'm sorry, I don't believe a 15-year-old could do something like that and leave, like, nothing behind. Especially this one. Okay? I'm not sure he was thinking ahead like that. So anyway, thanks for listening. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.